Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 9, Episode 95. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. And Dave, Mike Trout of the Angels just signed a 12-year contract worth more than $430 million. So, yes, I'm asking for a raise.
You get that Rooney money.
I don't know if Rooney has $430 million.
That's quite incredible. Boy, what a busy morning I've already had this morning. It's almost 7:30 here in Vegas, and it feels like I've put in a full day. And my mom has learned how to use FaceTime. So I got a surprise FaceTime from her this morning. She wanted to inform me that it looks like I haven't showered in several days, and then the conversation turned into my potty training as a child. And then from there, she ended the conversation by letting me know that she was thumbing through the channels yesterday, and she wanted to let me know. Didn't know if I knew it or not, but she saw where Ben Roethlisberger fumbled on purpose last season.
Close.
So she obviously got that wrong. She wanted to make sure I was aware of that.
Well, hey, that's what being a good mom's all about. But yeah, that story's still in the air. I'm surprised it's still being bounced around. I guess the national media was a little late picking up on it, and that's why it's still being carried. But I know it's a silly thing, and I'm sure neither of us have a great desire to talk about it at length. But because there's been some new stuff, and we've seen Bruce Gradkowski kind of defend Ben and explain what happened on the play, Josh Harris then shot back and gave his, opinion, and it's just going back and forth. But I thought Gradkowski gave a very reasonable explanation of why there was a fumble on that play, which was, 2014?
Yeah, essentially what he said is Roethlisberger forgot to reverse pivot out from underneath center, and that of course messed up the timing and caused him to make contact with Will Johnson, who was the fullback at the time there. I guess now what people are going to try to say is, well, Roethlisberger planned to pivot wrong so that he would purposely fumble to make it look like that. But I'm with you. I thought Bruce Gradkowski did a great job of narrating that video and all. And you're right also in the fact that, boy, this is something that came about last week. The national media finally picked it up, and it was on all the morning talk shows yesterday. But I'm guessing they won't we won't hear too much on the national media about Gradkowski's follow-up video from there. But boy, it just seemed, when we wake up every morning, we never know which direction we're going to go, what we're going to be writing about during the day, and to have all that stuff about Ben on those national talk shows yesterday was, of course, nauseating. And then, of course, you end the day by having to cover and write about the Bruce Gradkowski follow-up video there.
And one last note for that play, and I think that helps kind of give credence to what Gradkowski's saying. I went back through that entire 2014 game, Week 17 against the Bengals, and the Steelers did only 4 snaps with Will Johnson at fullback, and the first 3 were with Will Johnson offset, so you didn't have to reverse pivot, and then they finally go I for him for that fumble play, and Johnson is lined up in the traditional I. So I could totally understand why Ben forgot to do that, because they hadn't run a play like that the entire game.
Well, I'd like to see Bruce break down more stuff during the season.
Yeah, let's hire him.
I hear you.
Fantastic stuff. So, I mean, you don't think that Ben fumbled on purpose, right? Just to put a statement on that.
No, but I can imagine Ben being miffed about not getting a kneel down call for that play. Me too. I mean, knowing his history with Todd Haley and all, he probably was a little bit miffed. I just find it hard to believe even considered a situation where they were in the Bengals' own end and into the game circumstance, and I just find it hard to believe that Ben would do something like that purposefully.
Yeah, I mean, what's this simpler and more likely explanation that Ben just screwed up the play because he was, like you said, kind of peeved that Haley's calling the run play, which, by the way, the entire team was. To hear Harris originally talk about it, the whole team was rolling their eyes, not just Ben, or that Ben intentionally fumbled the football and, risks the turnover purposely just out of spite. I mean, Ben's the fiercest competitor in that locker room, and as others have said, and I think you and I have talked about, if Ben really wanted to disobey Haley, he would have just kneeled the football, just called a kneel and just been like, I'm not going to listen to the play call. So why go through the process of fumbling instead of just kneeling down if you want to rebel against Haley's call?
I agree.
All right, Dave, let's get to, I think, probably the biggest news on the show today, and probably the topic we're going to talk about at length about here. A third free agent coming into Pittsburgh. Wow, it's been a really active free agency, at least by Kevin Colbert's standards. But this one I think is the most surprising in terms of position and name, and maybe the most controversial and divisive about exactly, is it a good fit, where's he going to play, and all that. But Mark Barron signed on a 2-year, $12 million deal. That was news broke, Sunday afternoon, early evening. So what's your initial impression on the signing?
First of all, you say surprised. We kind of thought that maybe they'd go out and get maybe an inside linebacker / dime backer, right?
Well, I think I say surprised because I didn't know who that name was. Obviously it was a need, but the inside linebacker market where there was nothing there, and the dime backers, Barron is almost 30, and it just didn't feel like it was something that was screaming, yes, let's go get Mark Barron or someone like him.
Right. The name, I think, was the most surprising. That's what you're trying to say then.
Yeah, I understand the position of need, but it was just like who is going to fit that bill that fits what the Steelers' MO typically is. So I guess that's where my surprise comes from.
All right, fair enough. And as far as the signing goes, wow. I've been all through the tape on him. You wrote him up, so why don't you start?
Well, here's the thing with Barron is that, and this is kind of on purpose with the signing, but I'm trying to figure out exactly how they're going to use him, because my initial impression was, yeah, he's going to be the dime backer to replace Burnett, and he still could be, but it's also true that he's really played mainly a traditional inside linebacker spot with the Rams recently. So, I don't know, does he have that same exact flexibility quite like Burnett or other dime guys, or at least in theory the role of the dime guy. So, I think there's a lot of options here. I think it's, again, another move that kind of lends itself to the flexibility and kind of an insurance policy. If you can't get a top inside linebacker, I have a million thoughts there on how he could potentially be used. I don't think it's set in stone yet. Bottom line is that obviously he's a better athlete than your traditional inside linebacker. He can make a couple big plays. He's a good tackler. The run defense is a little suspect, and the man coverage is pretty poor.
2-year, $12 million deal. I don't think the specifics related to that are out yet. Probably tomorrow or the next day, sometime by Friday. I'm sure we'll have the specifics on that. Here's my thoughts on him after going through the tape.
Mm-hmm.
Still has some athleticism left in that almost near 30-year-old body of his. Against the run, I view him as being instinctual still. You go back and look at his tape, still seems to gap fill properly and read plays properly. Will manage to get stuck on some offensive linemen at the second level at times, and occasionally a tight end as well when out there. But there are some things that, I came across one play of an outside zone run where I thought he did a good job of beating that block and help getting in on the tackle with Aaron Donald on that particular play. Not a bad tackler, although I think he missed something like 7 tackles last year in total. The pass coverage thing, I think he gets knocked a little bit harder than what he should in that. And especially if you go and look, I think Pro Football Focus does a great job on several things. Although when it comes to grading, and specifically in some of the coverage type things where they like to place blame and then grade off of that, a lot of times you see him charged with giving up receptions to running backs that in no way, shape, or form is he going to get to break up. So then it becomes, how does he do after after the completion, and other times, when there's a zone drop or something, and they dinged him for one in that game against the Broncos on a pass to Emmanuel Sanders, kind of an over route, if you will, and I thought that was kind of unfair there. They also dinged him for that tackle eligible play. Touchdown by Decker in that game against the Lions. Overall, I liked, and I've watched probably 400 snaps of his, and supposedly if you go through Pro Football Focus grades from last season, his worst game was against the Detroit Lions last season. I went play by play through that, and he was charged with giving up 3 receptions. I forget how many yards in there, but one was kind of a dump-off tight end screen where the ball barely traveled past the line of scrimmage to a tight end. I think another one was a zone completion to one of the wide receivers, and I think another one was a dump-off to a running back there. The one that bothered me the most in that game was actually a drop in the red zone when he was lined up out. I think he was lined up out wide on maybe it was Theo Riddick, I think, and Riddick beat him kind of clean on a skinny post there, and it should have been a touchdown, but the ball was dropped. That was the most egregious in that game. Now, he did have 2 missed tackles in the game. I think one was a missed tackle on a run, and I think another one was a missed tackle on that aforementioned short dump off to Tavallo or whoever the tight end was that made that catch there. But it was like a completion. The completion yardage they gave up in that game, I think, was 10, 10, and 9 yards in that one. You go through his tape and try to match up what he was charged with completions. A lot, you very rarely, at least I haven't found any where it was deep down the field type situations. Like I said, there's a lot of allowed running back dump offs or screens in there, some zone drops and all where the quarterback found the proper zone, that kind of thing. So I think he gets a little bit knocked a little bit too hard on his coverage. And overall, you look at some of the games against the Saints, I thought he played good against the run.
Well, if you're looking at zone coverage, I think that's where he does his best work. I think he's athletic enough to get depth in his, zone drops, hook curl, middle zone drops, and be able to close on the football. And like you said, he is pretty instinctive. So when he's got his eyes on the quarterback, he can kind of read the play. He can drive downhill, and I think he has hit power to finish and be a strong, impactful tackler. Where I think he gets into trouble, and this is the concern going back to the is he a dimebacker question, is his man coverage. I can't really see him making plays or go back and find plays of him excelling in man coverage. I think he struggles carrying tight ends vertically. I think he's late with his hips. I think he's a guy that will guess and is vulnerable to some of these double moves and more advanced route concepts. I mean, yeah, athleticism is there, but I don't see it translate. So did you ever see any examples of him playing really well in true man coverage, especially carrying something vertical?
No. In fact, in that Lions game, I think only one time did he line up way out wide, I think with a running back who had split out way wide, and then he wasn't targeted on that play. But I think that's the only instance that I've seen that stuck out to me as far as a target goes. Any specific targets come to your mind from last season of man? I mentioned the one with the game against the Lions too that he gave up. That was an example that fits your example or what you're saying about him there. He didn't do a great job with a kind of a slot, I think, running back in that situation there. But overall, I don't see a lot of instances of that. Now, one thing that did stick out to me in going through the tape as well too is he was pulled off the field quite a bit in like 2-minute situations, I think, especially in the Lions game and in like obvious passing downs.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the question of, is he truly a dime guy, or is he more insurance policy as a MAC linebacker if they can't get a Devin Bush or a top-tier inside linebacker, or is there a third option here we're not considering? But yeah, I mean, I have the GIF in the Barron post. You can just search it on Steelers Depot, and there are like 3 examples over the last 2 years of at least of the plays that I looked at. I didn't look at every single play, obviously, but a lot of them where he couldn't carry tight ends vertically. And only one of them was caught, Evan Ingram in 2017. The others were incompletions, but they were just drops or just difficult plays that the tight end couldn't make. They weren't really impacted by Barron's good coverage. So I think I am worried about him in man coverage situations on tight ends. On running backs, I mean, it's more understandable. It's more natural for a linebacker. But if he's getting flexed out or if he's covering a tight end or really didn't see much work over a slot receiver. So some questions there, what his role and can he do that? And the answer to that is probably not.
I think he's good. I mean, he had, I forget what the total was of his run tackles. I think there was like 20-something. 20 of like 40, 28 of 40 something. I forget the specifics. It's up in my Twitter feed there of him registering what we would call an unsuccessful play for an offense. I guess you'd call it a stuff for him against runs. And the other thing that did stick out when going through his tape is he doesn't make a lot of plays on the football in the passing game.
Right, yeah. Again, I think he does a good job being able to rally and close, and he doesn't allow a lot of yak. He is a big hitter, but the big splash plays have kind of dropped off since 2015, I think was his last year where he really made a lot of impact.
And not as far as I can tell, not a high quality blitzer, I guess.
Well, I think I see a little something there. I mean, obviously, I think you have to scheme him open, but I can see that with the closing speed, the hit power. I mean, I saw something there. He's got a sack each of the last, 4 seasons with the Rams. With him as a run defender, I think he's patient. I think he's pretty disciplined in his run fills, and I think he closes with authority, and he can defend outside zone, and he can defend inside zone. My worry with him is that are those base blocks when those guards and centers get to him and cover him up at the second level. I think he has a big issue trying to work off blocks. He gets swallowed up because, of course, he is the former safety that transitioned to linebacker. And with the Rams, he got to play clean a lot. And I know the Steelers have a really good defensive line too, but I'm worried with Pittsburgh he's going to be covered up more often than he was in L.A., and that's going to hurt him. And so I have question marks about him against man and gap schemes of being able to work through block because generally he tries to go around, and that gets him in trouble.
He definitely can be bodied, and I think I noted that at the beginning there. But there are some instances of him doing a good job. I mean, he's aggressive. He'll try to fight through those blocks, but sometimes you'll see him get stuck on him or get kind of bodied out of the hole there. So that's obviously a concern there. And yeah, you're right. I mean, you look at, when you play behind Aaron Donald and Sue, those guys really were penetrating last year.
Yeah. So that's my concern is just transitioning there. I mean, how do you see Barron being used? Because that's the big question. I guess I'm struggling with it some. So what do you think his role is going to be?
I think you could see him as an early down inside linebacker.
Mm-hmm. Now, is he the dime guy? That's the big question.
That's going to be the big question here. That's going to be the big question. Is he a guy that I think he could? Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be, obviously, it's going to be interesting to see how he performs in that, and if he has to be out there too in obvious passing downs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the Barron signing would not stop me from signing a potential dime guy. I mean, I think it could happen, but I'm worried about him playing a little more in open space. I think him on slot receivers is going to be a mismatch, and even on tight ends he might struggle, and he has struggled. So, yeah, the more I think about this, I think it's that inside linebacker group so that, if you don't get Devin Bush, you don't get a top guy, that Barron can be that plan B. Because right now there was no plan B. You don't sign Barron and you don't get Devin Bush. Then what do you do? I had no answer to that. I mean, I said on Friday's show, if you don't get a Devin Bush, you got to find a dime guy to kind of be that de facto player, like Burnett's been, like Troy was when Larry Foote went down in 2014, Vince Williams' rookie year. So that's the approach there, and it gives you that flexibility in those options as well. So that's the idea behind it, is that he's a guy that can probably fit in a couple of different spots depending on how the draft and the rest of the offseason goes. And potentially, if this team's going to run more of that 3-3-5, which again, is Barron going to be the dime guy? I'm not quite sure, but maybe there's a home for him somewhere in there as well.
Now, he did miss, I think, the first 4 games of last season with an ankle injury. It did look like it took him a couple of games maybe to get in the groove there last season. But, look, I mean, who would you rather have, Barron or L.J. Fort?
That's a good question. That's close for me. I mean, I think you make an argument for either side. I don't know. I mean, with the money, I guess Fort was cheaper, but it's not that big of a difference. I don't know. That's a really good question.
And we'll have to see the contract specifics here, especially what he's going to take home in year one. 2 years, look, 2 year, $12 million deal. He's going to be probably making at least $5 million in 2019. So he's going to be playing, So it's just a matter of, how much does he play and what role does he play, in that defense.
I'll say this much. I mean, I want to see the contract details because I don't believe they've been released yet, but I would have definitely rather had Adrian Phillips over Mark Barron. No question about it.
All right. Anything else to kind of wind up on him? I mean, he's look. We're into his tape already, and as the offseason progresses, we'll break down. I'll try, one of us will get into it more into his targets and more specific, have posts dedicated to more of his play against the run and against coverage and go from there. So a little bit surprised, I guess, at the price for what you're getting there. Look, I mean, I talk all the time. It's rare that you see the Steelers go out and get a guy that close to 30,
right.
Because I think he'll turn 30 in October, something like that.
Yep,
that's close enough to 30. It makes you raise your eyebrows a little bit to kind of go against a little bit against the normal what Kevin Colbert normally likes to do. But I think this is a clear sign, or at least one would think at some point, maybe. I don't know how soon it will be that Morgan Burnett will be shuffled out of town, and probably, I don't know, if I had to bet right now, probably immediately after the draft. I think we kind of already touched on that topic. Is he going to be this year's J.J. Wilcox?
Mm-hmm. And I'd do it now since you have that Burnett replacement. I'm not sure what the point is to keep him, at least be a little fair to him, now that the main wave of free agency is over, to let him hit the market and sign somewhere else. Dave, I mean, does this, and I'll ask the question one more time, does this preclude you of signing a dime guy? If you get a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson or a Monty Hooker or someone like that, do you still take him, even knowing you have Mark Barron?
Oh, absolutely. I think,
and
that's kind of the transition here, I guess, kind of wrap. Look, they've signed an outside cornerback. They've signed an outside wide receiver. They've now signed, call Barron whatever you want, an inside linebacker, possible dime, what have you. They re-signed Daniel McCullers. They re-signed Anthony Chickillo. I mean, this is all systems normal for Colbert, right? I mean, he fills in kind of those holes during free agency that kind of that leaves him unhandcuffed, when it comes to the top of the draft there. So I think look, the obvious narrative right now is, boy, the Steelers are in a perfect position to get one of those inside linebackers, either Devin White or Devin Bush, and maybe even trade up a couple of spots to get them. And it's hard to go against that kind of early pre-draft narrative here. But what if those two guys aren't there? What if the price is just way too high to go up and get one of those guys? You have to have you have to have some flexibility there. And if one of those Devins you can't get, or for some reason you don't want, I think it leaves you open to go several different directions when it comes to that first round pick, and that's nothing new as far as Kevin Colbert goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is normal for Colbert in that sense, but it's also not normal in the sense of how aggressive he's been and how much money he's spending and how he's not going dumpster diving. I think most of these, I'd say all three of these moves are above the dumpster diving type quality level. So I think actually the most sensible thing he could have done this offseason was be a lot more aggressive and less thrifty than he's been in the past. But yeah, I mean,
but
like
didn't we kind of frame it as possibly going this way? I mean, Mike, I mean, this is a little bit stronger, I guess, than, 2013 or whatever it was when they did Mike Mitchell and Cam Thomas and, geez, who else did they? Moats that year. A little bit stronger contractually, but, we talked, several weeks ago about how they might be a little bit more aggressive than normal, and they have.
Well, that was the hope. I mean, I didn't know for sure that they would be. I mean, you talked about Colbert saying we don't make splashes. You were kind of poo-pooing the idea of $8 to $10 million per year, which I thought was going to be the one big move that they made, and Steve Nelson came in right above $8 million. So I thought yeah, I think that Colbert took a different approach to free agency, partly because they had more money, but partly, a different approach to what they've done in the past.
Now, the salary cap's obviously risen since they last signed, the likes of a Mitchell and a Darius Green and stuff like that. So, an inflationary and all like that, probably puts them on par, close to some of those levels a few years ago. So, after I got to admit though, after the signing of Nelson, after the signing of Moncrief, I wasn't so sure that you'd see a $6 million per year guy like Barron added in, maybe a little bit lower level, so that from a contractual or total APY aspect, maybe that was bigger than what I thought. But you got to fill your holes how you can.
And on shorter deals too. It's, Mitchell and Green, they're both 5-year contracts. Or was Green 5-year or
4-year, $20 million. Yeah, and Mike Mitchell was what, 5 for 25?
Yeah. But again, those were longer term commitments where the team was going to come out definitely ahead. Had those players played well, hypothetically, and in year 4, year 5, you would have had that guy super cheap. These are 2 to 3 year deals where you're paying some decent money pretty early for not an overly long contract. But no, and to go to the narrative idea, I mean, we don't know if they're going to trade up. It may cost too much, but I think this team has put itself in position to make an aggressive move, or at least an aggressive attempt for a Devin Bush. So if they want to trade up and they want to give, obviously, pick 20 and a third and probably something else, they can do so because they've signed a corner, they've signed a receiver, you have Mark Barron. You have some options here where you can trade some of your draft capital and not be scared to death in doing so because you have 10 other needs to fill. You have some other pieces in place and some stuff to work with on the roster. So, yeah, I think that they absolutely will make a strong attempt to trade up and try to get Devin Bush. Will it happen? We'll see, but I think they're in position to do so.
Speaking of that, I guess that this would be a perfect time to say it looks like they're still maybe looking around to maybe add a tight end. They brought in James O'Shaughnessy, previously of the Jacksonville Jaguars last year, for a visit on Monday. But as just a kind of a note on that, as we've seen over the years, if the Steelers bring in a guy for a free agent visit and that guy leaves town unsigned, it's rare that they end up being able to circle back and get that guy signed. Not saying it's going to happen, not going to happen, but just history has shown us that once those guys get out the door, they usually never circle back. So we'll see what happens on Tuesday with O'Shaughnessy. I imagine with his background and his limited receiving ability and him being primarily a blocker, that was a minimum signing benefit contract off of there. And he probably said, yeah, I think I'm going to take a look around. But obviously with losing Jesse James last week to free agency, they could use another body in there to possibly not cuff their hands, be a handcuff so much at that position. I think it goes now time to circle back to that position again. I know you're ruling it out more than I am, but I still don't think you can totally discount the possibility of a tight end. Totally discount the idea of a tight end in the first round, and especially if maybe those linebackers are off the board.
Well, to be clear, I've never ruled it out. I mean, I might be a little more hesitant to the idea than you are, but I think that was before free agency. Now that you filled some of those needs, and if you can't get a Devin Bush, I'm a little more open to the idea. I'm still not crazy about it. I still think you go receiver before you go tight end, and I think you'll have options there at receiver to make a move. But it's possible if Hawkinson's there. I mean, Noah Fant would maybe be a tougher sell because I'm worried about his year one impact as kind of an unrefined, more projection receiver type right now. But I mean, I'm not gonna. I don't rule anything out. In the first round, I don't try to go in with that mindset.
What's more likely to happen, a tight end in the first round or an edge?
Well, I guess the only concern with edge, I think edge is the bigger need and would help this team more in the short term. But who's that edge going to be is my question, because Polite's probably out of the first, and I don't know for sure who else you go with.
Yeah, and Sweat has that, heart. He's not really, in my opinion, a good fit for the Steelers anyway. Maybe they feel different than I do. Who else is, it's not going to be the Ferguson kid, right? Small school guy, not a Power 5 guy.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Burns is probably going to go higher than 20. What we're talking about here. Obviously, you're not going to get a Bosa or anyone like that. So yeah, I mean, it just in theory, edge would be higher, but I guess in practice, I don't know what name would be there for that 20 range. So maybe it would be tight end, but only because of I can't give you a name for edge right now unless I'm just blanking on somebody.
All right, fair enough. Let's see, and like I said, it wouldn't be surprising to watch the rest of this free agency period play out to see them add a cheap tight end at some point.
Yeah, that or maybe another defensive lineman or a safety, small safety, cheap guy there. They could do something else for sure.
All right.
And I guess just to touch on, because I'm not sure where they're at cap space wise. I know we have to get some of the final numbers in, but the team did restructure Vince Williams' deal, correct? That created a little bit of cap space.
Yes, it did. Before his roster bonus was due last week, Williams had the $2.9 million roster bonus, along with $1.395 million of his scheduled $2.2 million base salary, turned into a signing bonus, and that move created almost $2.9 million salary cap space for 2019 there. Let's see, what else do we have happen here? We got the contract details for the signing of Moncrief in, and that's a relatively cheap deal when you look at it. I mean, 2 years, $9 million. He's going to earn $5 million in 2019. He's set to earn a $1.5 million base salary this year, $3.5 million base salary in 2020. He got a $3.5 million signing bonus, and next year he has a $500,000 roster bonus due as well. So, when you look at what you're paying him, $5 million for 2019, that's relatively cheap, especially when you consider I think he had played for Jacksonville last year for just under $10 million for the one season there.
Yeah, no, it's a really good deal. I thought it was going to be higher than that, so I'm happy with the Moncrief deal. Dave, before we get into pro days, and I want to talk about the Ben no extension. Also after this, I want to talk about our friends over at Robinhood.
Yeah, we're excited to have Robinhood back as a sponsor on a terrible podcast, and we've talked about them before in previous shows. I've used Robinhood now for that app, stock trading app, for going on probably 4 years now, and I absolutely love it. Robinhood is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission-free. While other brokerages charge up to $10 for every trade, Robinhood doesn't charge any commission fees, so you can trade stocks and keep all of your profits. Plus, there is no account minimum deposit needed to get started, so you can start investing at any level. If you're new, this is a great opportunity to do it. The simple, intuitive design of Robinhood makes investing easy for newcomers and experts alike. View easy-to-understand charts on the app and market data and place a trade in just 4 taps on your smartphone. That's so simple I can use it. You also can view stock collections such as 100 most popular. With Robinhood, you can learn how to invest in the market as you build your portfolio, discover new stocks, track your favorite companies, and get custom notifications for price movements so you never miss the right moment to invest. Robinhood is giving listeners of the Terrible Podcast a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help you build your portfolio. Sign up now at Steelers.robinhood.com. And once again, we appreciate Robinhood being a sponsor on a Terrible Podcast. You're going to hear about us talking more about them over the next several weeks.
Absolutely. So thank you to Robinhood for sponsoring the podcast. All right, Dave, to jump back into it, the pro day circuit, I don't think, we did, I'm getting my days mixed up, but I don't think we talked about the Steelers sending basically anyone in the organization to Michigan's pro day on the 15th. And that's obviously a big sign for not only all the prospects there, but a pretty clear sign of the interest in Devin Bush.
Absolutely. And I don't think any word's been released about any type of a dinner or anything which would say Devin Bush or whatnot, but there was a report that Dan Rooney Jr. had a greet and meet or had a dinner with who was it?
Chase Winovich.
Oh, yeah, Chase Winovich. Yeah, Chase Winovich, I believe the night before his pro day. Now, Chase Winovich finally got an opportunity to dig into his tape. You want to talk about a guy that's got a motor on it, it's him. Now, he's not overly athletic, didn't appear to play on his feet much of any at Michigan, but boy, he sure could get after the quarterback there. So at the combine, I think what did he weigh in at? 6'3", 256 pounds, and had a 4.59 40 with a 1.57 10-yard dash split and a 6.943 cone, which raised his eye there. And I think his spark score came in, or I don't have it off the top of my head, but I think it's definitely in that raise the eyebrow area there. And what did he have, like 18 sacks, I think, during his Michigan career? I have all those along with the tackles for losses that he had in a contextualization post that you can search out on Steelers Depot that I put up a few days ago. So, a guy that probably, I don't know, where's Winovich going to go? Third, fourth round, somewhere around in there maybe?
Yeah, day 2. I think as early. I think you could consider him as early as 52 or 66 for Pittsburgh. I don't think he gets out of the third round.
So there you go. If you're looking for an edge and you miss out on a few of those top tier guys, maybe that's a guy they could be looking at there. And obviously being there when Devin Bush was there means a lot. Underclassman, Power 5, good kid, has the bloodline. His father was an NFL player as well too. So I mean, they're you want to talk about boxes checked? He's got them so far.
Was you talking about Bush or Winovich?
Bush.
Okay, yeah, Bush for sure. And let me just give you the list of all the guys we know that were at Michigan, and it is an extensive list. It's Kevin Colbert, Mike Tomlin, Keith Butler, Danny Smith, Jerry Golsavsky, James Daniel, Terrell Austin, and Dan Rooney Jr. That's 8 people? I mean, I'm not sure if I've ever seen this team send 8 people to some pro day before. I mean, I'm sure maybe they have and we missed it, but generally speaking, when this team sends the house, and this is that whole house, to a pro day, they're super interested in the top guy there. In 2017, that was T.J. Watt. Last year, it was Alabama. They wanted Rashaan Evans. And they sent a lot of guys to Virginia Tech for both Edmonds guys. They got Terrell Edmonds. So it's a pretty clear sign that you would have put one of the Michigan Wolverines pretty early in your mock draft.
Right. And there's a great post pro day interview with Devin Bush floating around on YouTube. I don't remember if I put it up on the site or not in one of those posts, but it's easy to search out on YouTube the Devin Bush post pro day interview.
Yeah, it was really good. I just wish they would have been asked about dinners, because I was really curious if he had a dinner with the Pittsburgh or not, because that's also really critical to their first-round pick process. And I know they had the dinner with Winovich, and oftentimes multiple players will be part of that dinner, instead of breaking it up, but we don't know that for sure, unfortunately. All right, Dave, other pro day stuff. They were at Michigan State, Temple, and we have Alabama's pro day today, which they should probably send some guys out for, I'm thinking.
Yeah, and Terrell Austin was at that Michigan State pro day, and it sure looked like that was Kevin Colbert we spied, but we don't have, I don't think, 100% certainty that Kevin Colbert was there. Who else did you spot there at the Michigan State pro day?
There were multiple people. It was hard to tell who some of them were, but yeah, Austin, potentially Kevin Colbert. Though I really think if Kevin Colbert was there, someone would have announced something, but also Dan Colbert, Kevin's son, and a couple other unknown personnel members.
And obviously Justin Lane, a guy that we've talked a little bit about, and I think I even have a contextualization up on him, and I think we have a draft profile up on him on Steelers Depot as well, too. Wide receiver turned cornerback that had some impressive tape there. That's probably going to be a, second or third round guy by the time the smoke clears there. So probably not overly surprising that the Steelers had potentially have some interest in him.
Yeah, and L.J. Scott, too, running back that I like, and get some Le'Veon Bell comparisons.
All right, good deal there. So Temple, Rock Ya-Sin, obviously there. Do you read too much into? We don't know. Maybe Bradley was there. I don't know if we got a good idea of who was representing the Steelers at that pro day. But the one of the major. I think you and I have already talked about Rock Ya-Sin. The hype may have been a little bit too strong for him around Senior Bowl time. You remember, this is a guy that was a transfer, played just the one season at Temple, and like I said, the hype might be a little bit too high on him. And besides, the Steelers normally, this isn't across the board, but they normally like guys that have that playtime experience at the top college level.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he's still not going to make it out of round 2. I don't know for sure if I agree or not. I see him as that late round 2, early round 3 prospect, in my opinion. But I know he's probably going to go higher than what I value him.
Listen to his post. You can go to the Temple, the Temple football website, the official Temple football website, and they have all the audios up of the players' post combine interviews. And I listened to that yesterday after his pro day. It wasn't too revealing. No idea. I mean, he didn't reveal who his pre-draft visits will be with, or who he's met with, or anything along those lines. I think he has had a lot of contact with the Eagles so far, so there's that. But I mean, it really sounds like to hear him talk, really sounds like a good kid.
And the Eagles' interest isn't surprising because Temple's right next door to Philly, so I guess that would make some sense. Any other pro day stuff? What LSU I think is coming up in a couple days, so I think you'll probably get some interest there. There's a lot of talent there. Devin White, Foster Moreau, Greedy Williams. Anything else that I'm missing?
Is the Penn State pro day today?
Is it? They'll send somebody to that. Probably send Bradley and
Amani. For Amani, you would think that they'd be there to see him at least there. They'll have somebody there, obviously. We just don't know who. And then, obviously, with the Alabama Pro Day going on last year, you want to talk about sitting the house. They sent a lot of people to that Alabama Pro Day last year, so it'll be interesting to see the contingent that's there today.
Yeah, and I think there should be a good group there as well. And again, they wanted a Rashawn Evans last year, so when they send every guy they can find to a pro day, that really kind of gets my attention and says that we got to put a prospect from that school on the list, especially a good one.
Obviously, after we get more details later on today, you can find out who was there and Penn State and everywhere. Alex will probably do a recap on today's pro day circuit later on today on SteelersDepot.com.
Yep, I will. All right, switching gears here. Before we get to some reader emails, Dave, I want to mention the Ben extension. Obviously, it has not happened yet. I know that's a little surprising to you and I, but we still expect it to happen, I guess. And can you just kind of walk us through maybe why it hasn't happened and why you think it still will happen, assuming that you do?
As far as the why, I can't tell you why it hasn't happened yet, but it does not appear as though it did, or else the numbers would be hit and all like that. Double check with I thought about maybe the possibility, maybe they talked him into pushing his roster bonus due date back, but I checked with Joel Corey, former NFL agent of CBS Sports. He told me there's no sign in the NFLPA records of such a transaction happening. So it appears that $5 million roster bonus now will stick in 2019 as far as the cap and everything goes. Now, just because they didn't get his extension done with him before paying him that $5 million roster bonus doesn't mean that you still can't work out one with him the remainder of the off season. And I talked to Joe Corey about that as well too. He still expects that to happen. The only difference now is you can't touch that $5 million roster bonus and turn it into a signing bonus. You can only touch roughly $11 million of that $12 million base salary that Ben's scheduled to earn. So, you can still do it. You can still do it and not move Ben's cap number. If you only want to do a 2-year extension, you can barely move Ben's cap number if you like with a 3-year extension, or you can move it a little bit more by signing him to a 4-year extension. So I know it's not much of it, doesn't help many people out there listening, but it's probably going to be either a 2 to a 4-year contract extension. And as far as with that $5 million now sticking in 2019, I think, and obviously this all depends on what what Ben needs as far as cash flow throughout the contract. Year one, I kind of speculate he's going to get, if they do an extension with him, the take home in 2019 would be, 40 to 42 million. And when you consider $5 million of that's already the roster bonus, the minimum base salary he can have is just over $1 million in 2019. That's $6 million right there. You do the math there. You would think at most maybe a $35 million signing bonus for Ben, depending on how you want to structure things there. But it's still very much doable, and thus there's no reason to freak out right now as far as them not getting it done. Now, is it going to happen in the next week or 2 weeks to free up any cap space? Probably not. In fact, at this point now, assuming they do get a contract extension done, I'm not sure one will be done that will free up much of any cap space. I think you do it maybe with the mind of maybe freeing up maybe a couple of million, or trying to keep his already scheduled cap number right at the same. So, yes, a lot of us, me included, were expecting this contract extension to happen before his roster bonus was paid, but that didn't happen. But it doesn't mean necessarily that it won't happen between now and the start of the regular season.
Let me just ask you this, and I know it's kind of an open-ended question, but I just want to get your opinion here because you follow the cap stuff certainly more than I do, and I'm sure more than 99% of people listening right now. I mean, just how tough is it to negotiate these deals for quarterbacks? Because I feel like for other positions, the top guys at the position get paid the most money, and if you're not the top guy, then you're not going to be paid like that. But quarterback is different. Basically, if you're next in line, you're getting paid like the top guy, really, regardless if you are or not, regardless of your success or if you have a Super Bowl ring or anything like that. So, I mean, just how tough is it in the world of NFL contracts that aren't generally fully guaranteed, but now you're seeing that with Kirk Cousins, and in a world where you're trying to leapfrog the next guy and trying to make it all work. I mean, just how tough is that on a team, I guess, to try to negotiate a deal that's good for them but good for the player as well.
Yeah, and obviously I can't give you a great answer to that.
It's tough though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it is tough because look, we don't know what he's looking for. As we're talking about a guy that's had multiple contracts that obviously shouldn't be in any kind of financial distress. Where is he willing to bend at in this thing? If any. I would still think Ben's going to want to come out of this as the top three highest paid quarterback when it comes to average yearly value. Not that you can judge anything off of that. And then there's the whole cash flow thing.
Right.
I mean, he's only scheduled right now to earn $17 million in 2019, and generally you see the first year cash flow of these things come in, $6-7 million more than what the average yearly value of the contract is. So, I mean, there's so many variables in play here, and don't forget too, guys like Russell Wilson and Phillip Rivers also have their hands out this offseason probably as well too, and those guys are grouped tightly together with Roethlisberger as far as down the quarterback pecking order there. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers leads the league. Matt Ryan is second. Do you want to beat Russell Wilson and Phillip Rivers to the altar here?
Right.
One would think the Steelers would, because Lord knows where this Russell Wilson contract, assuming it gets done, is going to come in at. Phillip Rivers, he's not too bad either. He's gonna want to probably be up there in top 5 as well too. So the needle's going to constantly be moving here, and you would think you would want to get Roethlisberger's deal done. There'd be some priority in that, and that might make it the negotiation balance swing a little bit to Roethlisberger's side there.
Yeah, because if you're Ben, you want to wait. You want to let them get their deals, right? You can wait it out.
Right. I mean, look, he's not eating bologna sandwiches, I don't think, right?
No, but
spam sandwiches, so he's in no hurry there. But,
right.
And obviously the Steelers' self-imposed kind of deadline of getting everything done before the start of the regular season's in play. But if you wait until training camp and thereafter to do it, are the Russell Wilson and Phillip Rivers deals going to be done by then?
If I'm Ben, it doesn't hurt to wait. It doesn't hurt to wait till then and see if it does. Because the worst case scenario, you're in the same spot you are now. Best case scenario, maybe your market value's gone up a little bit after those deals. So if you're Ben, you collect your $5 million roster bonus, you sit back and wait till July.
Right, absolutely. I mean, look, it's going to be interesting. I obviously thought it was going to happen by now. It hasn't.
Same.
My best guess now is it would happen before training camp. So and that gives me a lot of leeway there. But, I mean, I've had a lot of leeway with thinking it was going to get done by the time his roster bonus is paid as well, too.
Right. All right, Dave, I appreciate the insight and the answer there. Before we get to reader emails, I want to hear about from other sponsor. We've heard about them several times already. March Madness is starting this week, I think, right? Playing games are Wednesday or Thursday. So tell us about our friends over at MyBookie.
Absolutely. The first weekend of the NCAA tournament is the greatest betting event of the year. Whether you like filling out a bracket, picking a national champion, predicting first-round upsets, or all the above, MyBookie is the perfect home for your March Madness fun. Will Zion Williamson and his teammates cement their legacy at Duke with a title this year? Can Virginia get past its loss to a 16 seed last year? And can Kentucky get back to the Final Four this year? If you know the answers, or even if you don't, MyBookie.ag is the place to get in on the action. They have something for everyone during tournament time, even you, multiple bracket guy Dave. MyBookie has been in business for years. The goal is to give you the best customer service in the business, and the best part is they pay out fast when you win. I'm talking 48 hours fast. Bet with the best, then kick back and enjoy March Madness while you watch your picks cash in. Also, keep in mind that you can bet on the AAF games as well, too, at MyBookie.ag. Deposit with MyBookie today with promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible for a 50% sign-up bonus. That's promo code TERRIBLE. With MyBookie, you play, you win, and you get paid.
And we have a March Madness bracket going on for Steelers Depot. I tweeted the link out yesterday. You can scroll through my timeline for that. Or if you're on ESPN, because it is on ESPN, just type in Steelers Depot 2019. It's public, no password needed. Join and compete against the rest of Steelers Depot and probably kick our butt.
Absolutely, and as soon as I know what teams are in it, I'll do that.
Yeah, I have not filled out my bracket yet, but I'm sure it'll be a disaster pretty quickly, as it always is. All right, Dave.
Didn't I win it last year?
Did you? I don't remember.
See, you never remember my wins, do you?
You don't let me forget those, the problem. So I feel like you didn't. I'd still know it. All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails to close out the show.
All right, let us get to some reader emails here. Let's go to the email machine from Jay Barbatti. What do you guys think about 22 personnel? Defense is increasingly going to smaller, quicker defenders. If we can get a Hawkinson, I think he's one of the ones that's on Hawkinson here. Hawkinson type, keep Connor and Nick's Samuel on the field and power run with the big uglies. It's how the Pats rolled to the Super Bowl. What would Bill Belichick do?
Yeah, I mean, I understand it. Yeah, the NFL is cyclical, and at some point you're going to see teams go heavy to counter the speed and athleticism and the sub-package that they put out. We've seen the success Baltimore's had with that tight end heavy, run first, second, third type approach. And you're right, the Patriots use a fullback almost as much as anybody, at least in terms of a true fullback. Now, obviously, like the 49ers use a fullback, but Juszczyk is really more than that. But James Devlin is such a big part of that Patriots run game now. Again, there's still concerns to 22 personnel. You got to have the right personnel. You got to get that tight end. And this is still a base 11 personnel team that wants to throw the football and spread things out. And I think when you don't have AB, you do want to try to spread things out and create one-on-one matchups. So is there value in it? Sure. And this team still will use some of that personnel and they'll still mix things up. And they're not super static. They're not a Rams team that runs 11 personnel literally 95% of the time. So I see the value in it. But still, you have receivers, you have Ben, you have weapons. You want to spread the field. You want to create some chunk plays. And so this is still going to be a base 11 personnel team.
Right. And when you have a full up back like Roosevelt Nix, even though we love him, there's only so much playing time you're going to get him on the field as well, too, when you talk about a true fullback.
Right. Now, maybe he plays a little bit more this upcoming year, and I would kind of like to see it. I mean, I know that there were times last year it's frustrating not to see him on the field, but when you have him, you're just not as versatile with your scheme and your play calling, and that's an issue.
All right, from Rick Mooney. Hey, Dave and Alex, has Terrell Austin had an impact on the free agent signings on defense this year? Also, why does it feel like Big Ben and the Steelers are continually under attack from the national media? Why do they hate the Steelers so much? other teams seemed to get a free pass. Look, when you're dealing with a high-profile team with the Steelers, and especially it was hard to run from the whole Le'Veon Bell situation last year, and obviously the Antonio Brown situation this year. And when you got former players like Ryan Clark asked about every single move out there on ESPN, it's just an easy target because they do draw so much attention, and it's easy to get instant reactions out of that. So I don't view it so much as under attack. I just view it as being a very easy target with a large fan base that's easy to engage for starters.
Yeah, I'm really with you. I think the vultures get the circle, and when there's already stories there about Bell and AB, it's easy just to kind of pile on, and it's a good story to hear about Ben purposely fumbling. I mean, it makes for a really snazzy headline, so that's why a lot of people do it here in the offseason with not a whole lot going on football-wise.
And as far as Terrell Austin goes, we have no idea the impact that he has, but you would think there are some meetings to get his thoughts on some of these players, probably more so during draft time, but I mean, you would think he has some input. I wouldn't imagine it's a high impact that he has on free agent signings, but the truth of the matter is I can't give you the proper or all I can do is speculate because we don't know what role he plays in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of the evaluation. We might submit a report, watch a couple games and give his input. I do get the feeling that, because I know they were going to split Austin and Bradley. One was going to take safeties, one was going to take corners, and we didn't know which was which. I feel like Austin might be taking the cornerbacks because he was at Michigan State's pro day. He was at Michigan's pro day. There's top corners there to look at, and maybe that moved the needle on the Nelson signing team. Maybe he had some sort of input on, his opinion, at least, of Steven Nelson.
Yeah, that would be probably a good guess there. All right, from Dave Lacho, do you think the Steelers consider Sean Davis worthy of a second contract and long-term answer at free safety, or chance if picking best available they use an early pick on that spot? For one thing, first thing, Dave, I don't think you see them do anything with Sean Davis until after the draft. Second, there's no hurry to do anything with Sean Davis right now. Obviously, he's entering the final year of his rookie contract, right? So if they did do anything, it would be during free agency. I don't know. I mean, there's no rush to do it, obviously, and the safety market, especially for a guy with his experience, isn't going to be all that much. I don't know. I still put myself in the category of not having a good read on this. So I think it could go either way. And right now I would not be surprised if it went either way. I mean, look, would it hurt to lock him up for a 3-year, $9 million contract or something like that? Probably not, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't kill you, but I wouldn't do it. I want to see Davis play with that pressure, play in the final year of his deal, really see what the ceiling is. Reader asked a couple weeks ago, have we seen Sean Davis' ceiling yet? And I don't believe we have, but I don't know how much room there is. I think he's close to the top of the stairs. So let's see whenever, a second year at free safety with that pressure on. And even if he plays well, considering he's not going to be a top-tier safety, really, regardless of what happens, probably still not going to cost you a ton on for the market, his market value. So no, I would not. I would do Hargrave, do an extension for Hargrave. I would not do an extension for Sean Davis.
All right, and we'll see. Of course, that talk will pick up, or we'll have a lot more discussions about it probably once training camp gets underway. But I don't think you have to worry about anything happening between now and then in regards to him.
And you do Joe Hayden. If you were to do Joe Hayden, you would do him before Sean Davis, would you?
I would think so, and that's going to be another interesting thing to see what happens in the draft because how you're not overly married to Steven Nelson. Joe Hayden's given us no reason to think he's going to fall off the cliff in the next year or two, so maybe you can do something with Joe Hayden during training camp there. I don't think it would hurt anybody's feelings right now. I think he's still got a couple of 2-3 seasons left in him, and we'll obviously see how early maybe they pick a cornerback in this year's draft.
Yeah, I mean, with Hayden, though, what is he, 31? Is he 31?
I think
so. I want to say that. I think maybe he's going to play this year at age 31. So it's just, you do wonder, though, how far do you want to extend him and with the risk of him falling off? I mean,
he'll actually only turn 30 on April 14th.
Oh, really? Only 30? Okay. But then I'm more comfortable with that. Yeah, you could do a maybe 2-year extension.
Right. So
Maybe.
probably not out of the question there.
Yeah. I would do Hargrave and Hayden before I touch. I wouldn't do Sean Davis. Not that he's played terribly, but you want to see more. You want to see him in year 2 at free safety. You want to see him make some impact plays, and he's just got to earn it. And he just hasn't. It hasn't quite been there yet. I know it's been tough because they're moving around, and I think he's gotten kind of a raw deal because of that. But still, I'm not committing to him just quite yet.
All right, Craig Foster writes in, great show, guys. Listen every time. Between Mark Barron and Zach Brown, who was recently cut loose, I think, from the Redskins, who would you have rather have signed and why?
I would probably go Barron. I mean, because I think you're still talking about a hybrid guy, a guy that played safety. I mean, he's a good athlete. He can cover sideline to sideline. He can play well in zone coverage. And with Zach Brown, the issue with Zach Brown's been he's bounced around a lot of teams, and that's kind of a concern. His financial askings have always been pretty high, and there has been some kind of disruptive stuff in the locker room with him, taking some shots at his defensive coordinator last year. Not super crazy about that, especially for the way this team is right now. So, again, I have my concerns with Barron. I'm not going to pretend like I watched every snap of Zach Brown. I didn't really watch any of Zach Brown. I didn't think he'd be a Steeler, but I think I'd go with Mark Barron.
Yeah, I'd lean to Barron by a little bit there as well for a lot of reasons you just mentioned. The time for me, I think, to sign Zach Brown was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, coming off of Buffalo, I think would have been the time to do it.
Right. And in fact, I think I wrote about that as well, too, at that time. All right, from E. Allen. Question about new signing Dante Moncrief. In your opinion, do you think he has hit his ceiling as a player, or will there be improvement being with Ben in our offense? I think he has reached his ceiling as far as a player goes. It will be interesting to see if he has more catchable footballs thrown his way. So I think he looks forward to that. After doing a little bit more tape study on Moncrief, where are the wow catches? You just don't see those littered throughout his NFL career to date. You just don't see a lot of separation in there as well, too. I mean, Moncrief is a kind of a stopgap player here when it comes to the Steelers this season. There's no reason to think that just because they signed him that they can't or won't draft a wide receiver within the first 3 rounds, particularly one that maybe can play that X and get more involved in the offense from the second half of the season on. He is what he is on tape. He's a consistent player. But once again, you're not even close to going to mention him, obviously, in the same breath of a guy he's trying to replace in Antonio Brown. It's just, where's the wow when it comes to? I think he's a smart player. I think he's a disciplined player. Obviously can run the entire route tree, is lined up all over the place. I think, though, just what you see is kind of what you get with him.
Yeah, I think there's a little meat on the bone still because he hasn't played with great quarterbacks, and I think that's probably still inherently hurt him. I think he hasn't played with a quarterback.
He played with Luck a little bit.
Well, no, but then Luck got hurt, and then in his rookie year, he played a lot with Luck, but it was his rookie year, and then after that, Luck didn't play a whole lot. He's been playing with Matt Hasselbeck and Blake Bortles and Cody Kessler, so I think he hasn't played with a quarterback outside of his very early days with Andrew Luck that's had a great arm and a vertical type offense. So I think that's going to be helpful. I'd like to see him improve as a route runner. If he can do that, even marginally improve, then I think there's something there. Now, will he? That's a good question. Hopefully, Gerald Drake can help him out, because I think one of the biggest concerns with Moncrief, and certainly one of the biggest differences between Moncrief and Antonio Brown, and there are many, but the biggest is that he is not a great route runner. He's not a super technical route runner. He doesn't create a lot of separation, as you said. So if he can improve that a little bit and then play in an offense that's going to be probably as friendly to him as any offenses he's played in, and he's still only 25. He's not 29 years old. I still think there's still some room to grow. But yeah, I agree with everything you said, that second part about, the signing of Moncrief, especially for that contract. It's really cheap. Does not change his team's draft plans at all at wide receiver.
Right. The big thing with Moncrief, that you want to see happen is him stay healthy all offseason. So be there for every OTA practice, every training camp practice, so he can get all that crucial time in with Ben Roethlisberger. I think that's huge for him, obviously, as a new player this offseason. And we would think at least at the start of the season, he's going to be on the field quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move right along here to Joshua Dicker. Dave, this one's for you since you're the contract guru. I have two questions. First, just out of curiosity, what happens to player's contract if he retires during his contract, or can they even do that? Does the team just eat that money? I think I think you can go after a portion of the signing bonus if you really want to. Second, why is the June 1st such an important day for cap money? I hear a lot about being a post-June 1st cut, but I never understood why that is. Take Morgan Burnett, for example. Why is it the Steelers saved like $2 million more after June 1st versus before? All right, the June 1st cut designation comes into play when you have players that have more than one season of bonus proration left on their contract. Normally, if you cut a guy before June 1st and you don't designate him a June 1st cap casualty, then all of his outstanding prorated bonus money that's on the cap comes due in that year. Now, if he has multiple years left, and look, sometimes you'll see players with multiple years remaining get cut and not designated because the team says, okay, we can just take the full accelerated dead money hit all in this year. However, if you want to put off part of that, you can designate that player as a June 1st cap casualty. You have what was already scheduled to be his prorated money in the salary cap still count as it would as dead money in the year that you cut them. The only difference is whatever remaining years of prorated money, whatever that adds up to be, can be put on 2020 as dead money. So you're still going to take the full dead money hit against your salary cap. It just gives you the option to delay some of that until the following season by designated player as a post-June 1st cap hit. Now, one of the stipulations with a June 1st cap casualty is that even though you turn the player loose, let's say you turn Morgan Burnett loose right now, but you designated him as a post-June 1st cap hit. He can obviously go about his business and sign with whoever he wants to sign with, and you still have to carry what his previously designated cap charge was for this season up until January 2nd. That's when the relief comes in the form of you getting back whatever his base salary, credit for his base salary, whatever that was going to be, whatever maybe roster bonus he was due against the cap, and all too. So that's where normally you see these post-June cap hits happen with players that have a significant amount of outstanding proration still left on their contract, and Burnett's right there in that gray area. The Steelers will save $5 million this year against the cap by designating Burnett as a post June 1st cap hit, or what's the number, 3 point something or another if they don't designate him as a post-June 1st cap hit. So that's the difference, is really it allows you to delay dead money to the next season.
Okay. Great answer. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I'm not the person to ask, so I'm glad it was directed your way.
I have that broken down somewhere on the site as well, too, if you search out the Morgan Burnett post as well, too. All right, Dennis Diaz writes in, are there any good prospects who are they for the Steelers in the AAF league? When and how could they be signed or drafted? Yeah, I mean, look, Summers, the old cornerback there, he's probably not coming back at this point, but he's played well. I think one of their old receivers, Washington, had a good weekend there. I think if they're looking at anybody right now, it might be a kicker.
Yeah, and there was one kicker. Somebody tweeted at me. I forget the name. Who's been like 12 for 12.
Is it Nick? Is it Nick Folk?
I don't remember. I don't think it was. I think it was somebody that hasn't played in the NFL before. But that, certainly kicker, punter, or names you're looking at. I don't have any particular one. Greg Ward is still doing well. I think he got a big 74-yard punt return touchdown. My only concern with signing a kicker or a punter is that you worry about some of that wear and tear. Like, let's say hypothetically that the kicker in the AAF right now becomes your kicker for the season, the entire regular season. He's kicking literally a calendar year, and you do worry about rest and that leg kind of getting tired. You worry about fatigue, in December when you need that guy.
All right,
that's
good.
My concern.
And as far as when they can sign, I don't know the rules stipulated to that right now. One would think that if they got a deal right now, they could take it with the NFL, but I'm not entirely sure about that.
I think they can sign at any time. I want to say that they can. There's something in place that allows them that flexibility. Maybe not during the season, but I'm pretty sure you can do it at any moment.
Yeah, I would think I would think that it being kind of a developmental league for the NFL, if they got an opportunity with an NFL team, they should be able to latch on quick.
Yeah, because Josh Johnson, I know it was before the season, but Josh Johnson was like the top quarterback, and then he went to Washington and played in a couple games, and is still with Washington, I believe.
All right, from Bruce Myers, Dave, with the signing of Barron, do you think that moves defensive line higher on the draft needs list, since using the 3-3-5 will require more substitutions to run? Alex, you tackle this one first.
Well, I don't want to guarantee, how much they're going to use the 3-3-5. I think you're going to see it. I just don't quite know how much. It may be a situational thing, a game plan thing. I think you have to have in today's NFL a lot of personnel groupings, a lot of formations, and a lot of that smoke that Mike Tomlin talks about. That's another reason why he signed Barron, because I think there's some versatility there. I don't know if it necessarily changes the need of defensive line. I think it's kind of stayed the same, which is to say that, you want to probably add at least one defensive lineman, maybe two. I still think you got to bring in somebody to push Daniel McCullers, even if that is a high priority UDFA. And I think you'd like to find another rotational defensive end that can rush the passer, get after the quarterback, probably more so than Tyson Alualu can, and just certainly because you got a lot of guys that are approaching 30. Cam Hayward is approaching 30. Alualu, I think, is already 30, I want to say. And so you want to kind of bring in some fresh guys, some fresh legs without LT Walton unlikely to return. So I still think it's possible that it could surprise people with that third, fourth round pick, but I think certainly a good chance to see a defensive lineman somewhere in this draft.
I think you're going to get a defensive lineman in this draft. I don't think it'll happen in the first 2 rounds, but any time after that, game on.
Yep, agreed.
Let's see here. What else? Boy, we got a lot of people hitting the email machine. Compensatory picks. Hi, guys. Eric Johnson. I have a quick question. Out of this season's free agent signings, which will affect the possible compensatory pick situation in 2020, if any? Thank you for the great work, as always. Eric from Idaho. Phonetic spelling there. Thank you, Eric. I need that. I think where they stand right now, according to Nick Corte of Over the Cap, is they're in line for a third-round compensatory draft value pick right now. I think everything else, based on signings, has canceled out. Losing of Jesse James and L.J. Fort, and then obviously the signings of Moncrief and Nelson and Barron. I don't think I've seen any. I think the latest update that I saw was that, and Barron does not count against the formula because he was a street free agent. So he was cut by the Rams. So that doesn't factor into it at all. And one would think, kind of moving here forward with the Steelers, it's only going to be more than likely minimum salary type guys that really shouldn't play into this thing as well too. So I think best guess as we sit here today on March 19th is that the Steelers are in line for a third round compensatory draft pick in 2020. I don't think that's going to hurt anybody's feelings listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure at the start of this thing before free agency began that they were going to get that third because, if they make an aggressive move, but yeah, they get some talent and keep that third. And then I think, again, that helps you feel all the more aggressive this year, knowing that you have some picks coming next year too.
Colin Fagan writes in, can we get a spiderweb graph of Devin Bush or other guys you think the Steelers have interest in? I think you're talking about mock draftable accusation.com. They have those fancy spider web. They really are fun when you go side by side comparisons with players, especially if you have all the same set of the same events and all from the combine or pro day in that web, because it gives you a nice comparison of the spider web there. We'll obviously get more into comparisons of kind of some of these measurables as we get into the off season here, Colin. But if you just if you got a fever and the fever calls for more web graph, go to mockdraftable.com and look around there. Did you get my more cowbell reference there?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite bits.
All right, good deal there. Let's see here. Taylor Carpenter, unlikely to draft either Devin inside linebacker. David Alex, I noticed that you guys talking at length about the Steelers draft scenarios where they selected one of the two Devins at middle linebacker. I agree with most of what you have brought up during the show, except I feel there's little, he's no chance guy. Taylor's no chance guy, Alex, except I feel there's little to no chance either player is available at 20 due to the high value placed on the hybrid 3-down linebacker position and Colbert's reluctance to spend a lot of draft capital to move up in the first round. I think it's time to focus more on the more likely scenario, which is the Steelers reach a half round too early for Mack Wilson. God, I hope not. What are your thoughts on Wilson? I said it, I think, right from the get-go, and I think Wilson was one of the first one or two players I popped the tape in there. Look, we see Kevin Colbert go fishing for Artie Burns and, I guess to some extent Terrell Edmonds, and I don't know if you feel maybe T.J. Watt was a little bit of a reach as well, too. I'm going to be disappointed if Mack Wilson's that guy. Taylor White says, I've watched the tape and he seems really to stand out and how the wow factor. But I got to differ with you from Taylor when it comes to there. Where is the wow factor there? Where are those splash plays of him in the back? In the backfield and all. I think 2017 was a better season with him kind of more in coverage there as a dime backer. But to me, I wasn't overly impressed with his tape as a whole there. So we're going to have to agree to disagree there. 40 time is not great, but his tape shows a much faster, fluid player, writes in Taylor. Your thoughts? I think I gave you my thoughts there. And Taylor, don't be no chance guy.
He's a little no chance guy. That's better than no chance guy.
Yeah, okay. You're little to no chance guy. Look, obviously, where we stand right now, both these guys, both the Devins are probably going to go in the first round, with White probably going to go in that first 20 there. I think there's still a little bit of hope, though, when you look around at what other teams' needs are and throw a quarterback or two up in there and some of these other defensive linemen and maybe a tackle or whatnot. Yeah, don't rule out Bush possibly being there. Don't ruin it for everybody just yet.
Right, but I think it is going to be very tough for him to get to 20. I think there are so many teams involved. There are only two guys, White and Bush. They're in a tier and a class all their own. I think White's going – he probably won't get past 5 at Tampa. Definitely not out of the top 10. And that leaves Bush to try to make it, let's say, at least 10 picks. And Cincinnati at 11, I think it's going to be a team that's going to have a lot of interest in Devin Bush. I know they signed Preston Brown, but they just released Perfect. The linebacking core was a mess last year, one of the worst in football. That might be a guy that's difficult to pass up. So I think that a trade up is probably more likely than him falling to 20. Not that there's no chance of Bush falling to 20, but I think a trade up is probably going to be more likely. I will say this, though. I understand the concern about, oh no, White and Bush are gone. We need an inside linebacker. Let's just take Mack Wilson. And I would not love that pick. Let's be very clear about that. But I think, again, that Mark Barron signing helps kind of insulate themselves, the Steelers, from panicking and just reaching to get the next guy, kind of the way that they did with Artie Burns when William Jackson was taken one pick ahead of him. So I think that gives them options. So if you say, okay, we didn't get the top two linebackers, let's go somewhere else. We don't feel compelled to take an inside linebacker because we do have Mark Barron who can function in that role.
I'm just having fun with you, Taylor, okay? Don't get mad at me. All right, one last one from Alex.
Those were your wedding vows, right? I'm just having fun. Don't get mad at me.
Yeah, Alex Monsibias. How's that? From Bakersfield, California. Love the podcast. Both you guys, Dave and Alex, do a great job. And just so you know, this is the only podcast I listen to religiously every week. Thank you, Alex. Two questions. Which teams in the draft are potential draftees of an inside linebacker prior to the Steelers pick and are greatest threat to selecting one of the Devons? That's a good question. Number 2, who in the Steelers organization is responsible for drafting secondary personnel? And do you think this is a drafting issue or a scouting issue or both? Why don't you take both those, Alex?
Well, I haven't gone through all the teams. Maybe that's an exercise I'll do closer to the draft, but I mentioned Tampa at 5, Cincy at 11, Denver, wherever they're picking, now that they have their in the prime Joe Flacco, at least according to John Elway, which is a crazy statement to make, but they're set a quarterback in their mind. So those are 3 teams off the bat. I'm not sure what other teams would fit. I'm sure there's a couple other that you could mention. But yeah, Tampa, Cincy, Denver are all teams to look at. As to the second part of the question, let's be clear. The only people that make the final draft decisions are Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert. They come together and they're making the decision. So there is no the secondary gets decided by this group and the offensive lineman gets decided by this group. Now input can change obviously with position coaches and coordinators and stuff like that. But the decision makers in every draft, for every single draft pick, is Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert.
And to his question, do you think this is drafting issue or a scouting issue? Yes.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's everything.
Look, I mean, obviously they haven't had great success with the drafting of cornerbacks for some time now. So they're gonna odds are they're gonna go after a ball hawk. We heard Kevin Colbert mention a few weeks ago how we got to get players that have a history of showing they can get their hands on the football. So I don't know, boy, that Justin Lane is appealing maybe in round 3, huh, Alex?
I think if you want him, you got to take him at 52. I'm not sure he gets out of the second round. Doesn't sound like it.
Maybe if you don't use one of those, maybe if you don't trade up in the first, maybe use one of those 3s to go up.
Yeah.
In round 2 or something like that.
Yeah, possible.
All right. Good questions today. And once again, if you submitted an email question and we didn't get to it, I apologize. But we try to take as many of these as we possibly can and read them. But we've ran long once again there. Alex, any kind of final? Oh, Vontaze Burfict. The Bengals parted ways with him, and already supposedly visiting Oakland on Tuesday. There, boy, I wonder if AB's in the building for that meeting there. So probably a year or two too late for the Bengals to cut Vontaze Burfict. I don't think it's a huge surprise. It'll be interesting to see if indeed he lands with a team right away, such as the Oakland Raiders. We'll be back on at this on Friday. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex Kozora on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast @gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the show, please go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button in the upper right navigational bar. Also, if you want a ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, we're still getting signups on those. Go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the ad-free button in the right navigational bar. For $25, you can have an ad-free version of the site for 1 full calendar year. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.